Now,
Go ahead.
now I was gonna say though, kind of along those lines, that shows crossover appeal.
Yeah.
That means that the world over, if you say, "Let me see what draw a wrestler," they draw somebody that looks sort of like Hogan. I say the same about Hogan when it comes to a face that runs the place. In ring, we're talking. And so it begs the question. I would say this is the first one that moral and ethical thing really just it lit up like a firecracker.
Reason why he probably felt like he never had to worry about it was the very same reason he was a target to begin with.
To begin with.
I'm Hulk Hogan. Welcome back to Getting Worked. It's your boy Jared. I'm hanging out here with my boy Ian. And tonight, as part of our top 50 wrestlers of all time, according to AI, we're going to be doing a deep dive on the top 20, starting with number 19, Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
Mr.
Wow.
WrestleMania himself. Some of you might be
Let's be real. Mr.
surprised.
WrestleMania is somebody else. There's that other guy. But
Oh, well,
not gonna get there.
now, come on now.
We're not gonna get there. We're not gonna get there.
So many people here have body slammed a giant in the early days of WrestleMania, but you're right, technically. I should have said Mr. Hulkamania.
Hulkamaniacs. Well, let me tell you something, brother.
Again, I think is going to have a different impact depending on how old you are and whether or not you grew up in the 80s, the 90s,
Which Hogan do you know?
or
Do you know
later.
that guy, the yellow? When you first picture Hulk Hogan, do you picture him like that guy, or do you picture him like this guy, or possibly do you picture him? Trying to time this right. Do you picture him like?
There was, well, yeah.
Which one of those do you picture? That'll tell you how old you are and things like
I
that.
mean,
So you came up in the 80s. Who's that guy?
So again, I tend to have a bit more of kind of a understanding of the history of wrestling, watching wrestling and things like that. I remember the name of Hulk Hogan because I didn't have like the direct access to watch the AWA at the time, but I knew about the name, like reading the magazines and things like that. I knew about this guy, and I my memory might be off on this, but I want to say I remember seeing Hogan coming out as part of the Rocky movies before knowing him as Hulkamania Hulk Hogan.
Sure. I think he was Hulkamania one of I think he would, because otherwise no one would have known who he was. He was
Now,
like,
I didn't say which one came first. I was saying
okay.
which one I saw first.
Knew him first.
And like visually saw him first. And so because it's so close together, but I wanna potentially let's double check the facts here, but I thought he was maybe potentially still kind of in the AWA part of it. It wasn't so much that necessarily people would know who he was when he came out in the Rocky movie. It was that the Rocky movie was going to help to elevate
it helps
him
move
up.
This list right here because it gave him crossover appeal.
It did.
Which is what you had to have. The best anyone had ever done it at his point.
Oh,
as far as crossover.
I mean,
you cannot. Any grandma knew who Hulk Hogan was. Like you could show his picture.
There are people in the Philippines that knew who Hulk Hogan was. There are people in Vietnam who knew who Hulk Hogan was. There are people everywhere that knew who Hulk Hogan was. Like
you could show them a picture. They had never seen Wrestling Match 1, and they go, Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan. 1980s Saturday morning cartoon.
Yes. Exactly. Every
I
little
mean,
kid knew Hogan. So for me, from my perspective, I know Hogan, he was wrestling. Like I could have picked out 2 guys, and we'll get to another one at some point probably, but there were 2 guys I could have probably picked out. He was one. And so
yeah.
I wasn't a wrestler like, as a kid, my folks were not gonna allow me to watch. I was not a my folks weren't exactly a wrestling family, let's just say. So they yeah, so I wasn't watching that. Great parents, all that good stuff, but I was not watching wrestling, let me just tell you. And actually, maybe that makes them even better. I don't know.
A bit rougher on it is kind of more of the memory and the timing on it because I got involved with wrestling broader and even like my early parts of wrestling was the NWA, was what
Mhm.
became WCW. It was the Southern Territory side of it. And then it was the a little bit kind of part of the indie scene, a little bit of some of the stuff that was going on in Japan. And then WWE started to become more of my uh, kind of my general watching. It might have been like WrestleMania 3
Yeah,
around that time frame.
where he
I
came
don't
in.
think I don't think I was really watching I don't think I watched 1 or 2 live. I wanna
So
say that, but yeah, you're right. I mean, as far as WWE went, Hulk was the top guy. Anytime he was on the
yeah, I
screen,
don't think and he did everything he could to be that top guy, and he did it well. Like, let's be real here. Hogan is within the ring, within the wrestling world, one of the top.
yeah,
One of the if you stay in the wrestling world, no extra stuff, and we'll get into that in here in just a little while. You can't deny his in-ring accomplishments and table all of that. What happened on the screen? Who did he appeal to? If he was a good guy, he was the face. He was the face that ran
he
the place
was the face that ran
before
the
that.
place. I mean,
Like, let's
period.
yeah.
He was the rocket ship that Vince hitched his business onto and
And it was a
rode
good call.
that rocket. Yeah, it succeeded.
Yep.
You talk
The
about
WWE is not
billions
WWF, but
with a
WWE now.
B. Like, and I mean, again, we talk about like the money made, and we talk about that 400 to 800 million dollars, right?
Yeah.
You
That's
have to consider inflation there. You
oh,
have to
absolutely.
consider what that money meant back in the 80s. Like, I want to say we're hitting a time now where like late 90s money is starting to be
Where
like half of where we are now. So if you start looking at something, cost of something, say in say the mid to late 1990s,
mhm.
right now in 2025 we're at right about double. We're somewhere in
Which
that
is one of the
ballpark.
things that factors in here as well. So when it comes to
Then
things like that, the money I have it adjusted for inflation and stuff like that. So that's
okay, some of that is like
it's
hitting,
showing the number like, hey, here's what our estimated number for the time period was.
but
It
yeah.
it for the most part also usually gives me a percentage or something close to.
You're saying it's 20%. They're saying it's 20% of
Mhm.
WWE's
Total.
one man,
See what I'm saying?
one person.
One
Yeah.
guy.
And 20, roughly 20% of WWE's 1980s revenue industry, looking at about 2 to 4 billion dollars. One man being 20% of that, that's a high commodity, period. Like one
You
individual.
make sure he's happy. That's what you do.
Absolutely.
Yes,
But
yes.
also just and then like some of the ancillary effect of it. The fact that, you have someone look at, we talk about like, what he's doing for say like a Randy Savage having a program with him. We talk about what it means for him to wrestle
Got the rub.
the rub. The rub.
Yeah.
They put together a package with him in the ring where, especially as a young kid, you felt like, oh crap, he's done. He's done.
Yeah. Right.
It's over. And then he would start to hulk up. Forget about it. As a little kid,
Yeah. That was the most hyped up thing ever. Oh,
and you
shoot. I
can
was.
watch it. You can watch it a dozen times.
And you know what's coming. I mean, it's not. Yeah. Yeah. Taker
See it,
after he goes like this.
or he does the
Yeah.
sit up.
Yeah. Where he just.
Or Sean when he does the kip up.
Oh, yeah.
You
Flip
know,
over. Yeah.
you get that was now Flair was interesting because Flair and a lot of times would work heel, whereas Hulk, especially during his prime days,
Oh, he was
was
only
the
a face.
ultimate
He
baby
was
face.
face to
You know,
face. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and
He was fighting
so it
all
was.
the foreign people that were dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, good grief. That's the other thing too. I mean, yeah, he ultimately just ended up
Became like
kind
a
of
meme.
becoming well. That's a
You
good.
think about it, he's kind of the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
He at that time but more he became more of a representation,
Yeah.
of America. You know what I mean?
America.
He became that. He became that. He became that face that not just represented WWE, but also represented an American hero for,
Which
you
face
know,
of America.
yeah.
And
Yeah, because
so
then
that, but
but
with
you
that
brought up
said,
you brought up the foreign thing, and so you had like the Sheik, you
yeah,
had
that's
they
literally, I was starting to
threw
think, I was like, oh,
500 Russians at him. They
yeah.
and so effectively it was just okay. Who's the
Later on, he was
power?
fighting against, because remember, Sergeant Slaughter became a bad guy. He
Right,
was
right, and he
Iranian,
started becoming he started
and
representing
Hogan had to
yeah
be
yeah
like,
yeah
it's always
yeah.
it's like the same song and dance over and over.
Whatever's
Yeah,
going on, and WWE took advantage of that story that's going on
absolutely.
within the
So
geopolitics. Yeah,
now,
go ahead.
I was gonna say though, kind of along those lines, that shows crossover appeal.
Yeah,
That means that the world over, if you say, let me see what draw a wrestler, they draw somebody that looks sort of like Hogan. Like, and
pretty
that's,
much.
it kind of almost goes down the Superman category, like who's the most popular superhero in the world? Superman.
Oh, easy,
Period. Superman.
easy. Yeah,
You ask some random kid on some tropical island somewhere that's never been out, he'll draw Superman.
yeah,
Somehow he will know.
yeah.
Uh that means the best one. I'm just saying he's the most popular.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows who he is. I say the same about Hogan when it comes to a face that runs the place. In ring, we're talking. And so it begs the question. I would say this is the first one that moral and ethical thing really just it lit up like a firecracker.
Hogan, as an individual, I'm of two minds. The But let me preface it with this. The one thing I feel 100% about is that I feel that Hogan is an unfortunate case of never meet your heroes.
That's actually a really good way to say that. I'm glad you thought,
Um
yeah, that's a really good, because so, or even, going to the as we're speaking on, a media of some type, but having too much access might be bad.
and this is where I think again I'm thinking about where of two minds because now here's the flip side of the coin of what we effectively just went over. Hulk Hogan was the name that ran the place. As far as professional wrestling went, Hulk
Yeah.
Hogan was, if not the face, at least number two, you
Was
know.
he one of the was
eh,
he one of the first wrestlers to go into Hollywood? Do you remember anyone before him?
And become like a true crossover appeal. It had to have been someone before my time.
Sure,
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah, yeah,
mean?
but
I
what
think,
I'm
but
using that
Hogan,
for
but you
sure.
also got to consider the timing of the 80s, the media boom that came out of
Mhm,
America worldwide for everything from that 80s into the 90s really became like this huge, like American movies really became a broader worldwide
those are cool.
appeal. You had,
Yeah,
the rock bands, you had wrestling, and Vince was smart. He tapped into all of those things. And
mhm,
while he was tapping into the pulse of that, it was Hogan at the top
he was
of
at
the
the front of it.
WWF at the time when
Mhm,
Vince was like taking advantage of
rising.
all of those markets.
That was the highs. You were gonna touch on a couple of the lows.
So
Uh,
again, I think on the other side of that, I think that what shall rise shall one day fall. It's gravity. Um, and I think Hogan, I get the sense that Hogan never has truly come to terms with him not being that 80s icon. I think we started to see that in WCW up front, but behind the scenes, we also saw that in his later years and time in WWE as stories has started to come out about some of the shenanigans that he has pulled. The one to me that
real quick,
go
even
ahead.
though this one, what you're about to jump into, I just want to say real quick. Um, One of the things I tried not to have in the algorithm were where it was pulling more of the gossipy, and what you're about to talk about
Sure.
isn't like it's been
Fair enough.
confirmed, all that stuff.
Fair
So,
enough.
but
Fair
I do
enough.
want to point out it's not every little. So for Randy Orton, with the last one, Randy Orton has a clean record. There's plenty of stuff behind the scenes that and behind in the there's that with every great wrestler, quite
Sure.
frankly. Like, let's
Sure.
there's a part of that is
Friction behind the
competition,
scenes and
kinda,
things.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
at the end of the day, there's only a few people at the top, which means you need to fight to get there.
Oh,
Hogan
no.
was
100%.
going about it,
100%.
but like that politic has always been there. It's still there. I mean, whatever.
There
But
was
I do want to point out that
one
that's not what's added into the. But jump back to. I know
the
you were going.
order.
I'm
No, no,
assuming you're
no. The
going with
order, the
Taker, right?
order, the order of things. I mean, I
Yeah,
think. Well, I mean, some people might argue it's like, yeah, why is Hogan all the way back in 19? I think
yeah.
again, I think there's a lot of things that come into play here about some of the stuff that he has done, said, and everything else. But like I say, the one thing is, and again, this is where I do rarely dip into the wrestling fan side of things. There's a well-established story about an incident in a match, and I don't have the exact like. I'm sure it was a pay-per-view or something where it was him going up against Undertaker, and at its face, what Hogan was looking to achieve was to make the Undertaker appear to be unsafe. And as
And by
this
doing that, knocking him down the pegs as
exactly,
far as title shots and who he wrestled and things like that, or
exactly.
controlling him in another way to say that.
Well, you got to think about it. Taker came in right around the latter end of Hogan's run in WWF, WWE.
Passing ships.
Yep. And I think that this was, again, and then this is just not based on this one incident, it's
Sure.
in context of various different stories, well corroborated. Others, okay, maybe some gossip, not sure. But ultimately, the idea was that there, Hogan, in a nutshell, was being very squirrely before that match and talking about various things and talking about his neck. And anybody that would listen, he was talking about his neck. And then he goes and has a match with Taker. Taker won the match. Taker was over.
And it was also, that was the one where Flair slides the chair in and Taker's supposed to drop him on the chair, which he
Correct.
drops him on the chair.
Correct.
Yeah. Just visually.
So Taker gives Hogan probably one of, if you watch the video, probably one of the safest as far as Hogan's
head very
head
nicely.
or anything coming. Like, Hogan's head was so far up, and I've always told you how thick
it was about
thighs,
6 inches away. Like, it was not.
I've told you how thick thighs save lives.
True statement, huh?
But hey, you know,
You never thought about that was what you were going to apply.
But no, but when you think about like pile drivers and like tombstone pile drivers, which is more of kind of the length of the thighs and the knees and everything, and how you. But anyway, Taker's a big dude. He can pretty much and with either by himself and at very least with assistance. If you're another big dude, and Hogan's another big dude, you know. If Hogan's obviously not legitimately one to get dropped on his head, he's going to be holding on for dear life. He can pretty much drop you where he wants to, for the most part. This case, he made damn sure he did. And
he's a young wrestler. This isn't now Taker, but this is young budding star.
Well, in the WWF. But understand that Mark Callis had been he wasn't green. Let me put it that way.
No. But you still knew it. Like, you could be the most grizzled vet. You're in a new job. And you're in a job.
Right. But it wasn't like,
and he was about to crack. It wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about from Hogan's perspective. You're talking about like you got this young buck guy.
Depending, but you got he's rising. Like, Taker's star is the rub that we were just talking about. Hogan can give the rub. He was giving that 100%,
100%
right here to a guy that was gonna get there anyhow, because it's the Undertaker.
It's the Undertaker. You get a 6'9", 300-pound guy that can walk the top rope.
Yeah.
And
we're not talking about Taker. We're not talking about Taker.
But anyway, but here's the trick. Here's the end of the story. Here's the end of the story, and this is one of the things that I'd heard about that really kind of helped to solidify me losing a lot of respect for Hogan, on top of a lot of things. But within the wrestling business, again, Hogan was being very squirrely, but also at the same time telling everybody that could listen about his neck. He's peacocking about it. Maybe a little bit too much. Then you got Taker, and this is why I wanted to make the point that it's not that he's green.
Sure.
Because Taker had been around. He was a pro.
Right.
Taker gives him effectively probably the safest tombstone he's ever given anyone. And as soon as it hits, as soon as they do the move, Hogan comes around. The first words out of Hogan's mouth to Taker is, "You got me, brother." Hogan was orchestrating a story where Taker hurt him.
And not in-ring story. a
behind the
a
scenes
job to
trying.
job
He was working. He
issue.
was working a
It was an
shoot.
HR issue.
Yeah,
Yes.
an
Yes.
HR issue.
It was an
Yeah,
HR issue.
that to me really just, man, you just don't. It's like,
He
to
ran to the
me.
boss and said he dropped
Oh, and
things
right
unsafe.
away, it's like, oh, call my family, call my kids, my neck, my back, my neck and my back.
My neck and my back,
I'll
but I
settle
sold it
the
out for $50.
pretty much, and it's sad to say that it's become a meme in that way. But what else are you going to do but laugh at it? But also, I
Yeah.
kind of like Hogan was
And that's the best of the things.
Hogan was the monster that Vince created.
Yeah.
And at that time, he was starting on the downside of things, and Taker was one of the many that was up on the rise. Hogan is the source of the meme. That's not going to work for me, brother.
Not gonna work for me, brother.
Not something that you really want to have attached to your name. If you're Hulk Hogan coming out of the 80s, there was another star and another company who also wore bright colors, who's on a rise, who did none of that crap.
Yeah.
Talk about him later. But
Surfer.
I mean, again, you talk about like doing things. And now, granted, again, it's one of those unfortunate things in business where you see examples of people effectively doing things what you would consider to be the wrong way.
Yeah.
Or at least have that kind of sense in you.
Right.
Being the ones that rise up higher than maybe folks that might have a bit more of a moral center. When you look at Hogan, when you look at Flair, we know, I guess the big thing here is that, the stories about him, they're all over the news. They were taken into account as part of this story. I just don't want to talk about that right now. It's out there, and it's part of why he was penalized and why he was put into 19.
Yeah.
But I want to, from a wrestling perspective, and we touched on it, I think I want to talk about Hogan in the 90s, especially his time in WCW. Obviously, things went the way they went in WWE, WWF, to where Hogan became a free agent. And he ultimately signed with WCW. Initially, he came in as a face. The yellow, the red, the whole thing. Not wearing the shorts anymore, but hey, fair enough. And then he ultimately made the heel turn. Now, from a storyline perspective, especially being in WCW and the way they were running their content, they were running things grittier, closer to real,
They were starting the Attitude Era without it being called the Attitude Era.
Kind of.
Kind of what it comes down to.
I mean, it's interesting. Like they let Hulk Hogan stay Hulk Hogan, but Bischoff, for the most part, was trying to say, no, like, let's not go with Diesel. Let's not go with Scott
His real
Hall,
name.
Kevin Nash. We're pulling behind the curtain just a smidge.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving you guys like an opportunity to come in with real names and not be gimmicks.
You know who they are, you just don't know why they're here.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny how Scott kind of came in initially and then started to phase out the accent,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, too.
again, when Hogan came in, he came in, and again, the stories started to come out where I think that's where the whole "that's not going to work for me, brother" meme really started to come through. You know, I think Hogan kind of interjected himself into the NWO. I
Well,
don't,
yeah.
all
So
the
they wanted
stories are leaning to him
the
not being
story.
the guy, right?
Well, yeah, the story is that that Nash and Hall did not know for sure who was gonna come out, because it was possible because Hogan was against it because he was scared to turn heel. And, and if yeah,
That's what he
we'll get into that.
said. But
Well,
yeah,
but because he figured he could make more money being red and yellow, because that's what's always worked, and golly gosh darn it, 7 most expensive words in business, I've always done it this way. There we go. So, I it was between him and Sting.
right.
As ironic as that
Now,
would have
I
been, like,
know,
what there's a dimension out there that somewhere Sting and the Outsiders start the NWO.
sure. I know that that was the storyline that was presented. There's an alternate storyline where Hogan wanted to hitch himself up to what he thought was going to be
Take him back up top.
the big story, the big, And I mean, to
And
be fair,
quite
give
frankly, I
him an
think both
opportunity to
stories
be a
are the
heel.
same story, it's just a different part of it, because
Well,
everything you just said is the argument for him to eventually be the one to decide to go out there and be that thing. Like,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, and
yeah.
sort of all is that it's that same story.
I think that,
Anyhow,
and
that's
it's always so funny because I mean, I think because before WWE, Hogan was a heel. When you look at Hogan's, other than Hulk, the Hulk up part, right?
Mhm.
His overall style is a heel. He does little tricks and like the scratch along the
Well,
back
yeah.
and little things that he does. He primarily wrestles as a heel. Um, you know, maybe a little bit toned down, you know,
I know what you mean.
but in a way it was always, to be fair though, a lot of that would be kind of the comeuppance to, he would bring
Yeah,
that out
and
more at the
wrestling
end, like.
wrestling then was not nearly the acrobatic showcase of athletes that it
Oh
is now.
no, 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 no.
Hulk Hogan on his best day wasn't an athlete. And no knock on him, neither were any of the rest of them in the ring. Like, it was like
Well, so I
Iron
mean,
Sheik wasn't exactly an
no, a lot of
and I
those
don't mean athletic
names,
as in
but
these
like,
are all of they do great
yeah,
things
you
or
had
wonderful
like a
things, but it was
lot of
about
like the true to form athletes were usually kind of put into the heavyweight thing for a bit, or primarily put in to maintain the intercontinental belt because you were the ones that were working every
the workers.
week.
Mhm.
Because what I'm thinking about that is Randy Savage. Um,
Sure.
like, forget about it. Like, Randy Poffo was a freaking like a freak athlete. He was absolutely an unbelievable athlete. Ricky the Dragon
Dragon Steamboat.
Steamboat. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about Superfly. I'm trying to conflate Superfly Jimmy Snuka,
That's
who's,
it. That's it. You were
but
combining
from
them.
from an athletic standpoint, again, holy crap! But
Oh,
like,
sure.
but a lot of those guys would be sort of pushed out to the lower card because those were the workers. Those were the guys that could go. And within the main event, from Vince's mind, he
Were
wanted
the biggest.
giants versus
Big and muscly.
giants. He
Big
just
muscly.
wanted, yeah, yeah.
It was the land of giants or of dinosaurs, depending on who you're talking to.
And it was really,
Um,
yeah. So
well,
but
moving
from
dinosaurs.
Hogan in the 90s though, I think that I think a little bit. Now, part of it was because he was playing heel, but especially looking back at it with the eyes of someone who understands a little bit more about who he is and who he eventually became. You start to see a little bit of that veneer start to peel off. You start to see more and more hints of that. And then also when you look at like his runs on like TNA and and things like that, you just kind of start to
It's like
see
all the
where
bad stuff. Well, he
it's
started
just
out
this
he
desperate just holding on to what he had. And it was like, man, you should have retired. You should have retired. Like, I don't.
well,
I would
maybe
say I
according
would.
to what has happened since he retired, perhaps he should not have, because it may have just been worse earlier. Like, he's progressively the '80s, if you ever wanna talk about somebody who had a high in
Yeah,
a certain decade,
yeah.
his high is the '80s. There's no question, and it's a high it is the highest of highs. Let me just tell you,
You could
you
argue
g yes.
he had I think his fate like his time and at least his presence had helped to kind of bring probably more eyes onto the NWO than
Oh,
you
absolutely.
might not
Again, the rub.
have. The rub. Um,
The NWO doesn't work, and I love Sting. The NWO doesn't work nearly as well if Sting's the guy that comes
oh
out.
no, no, no.
Just
Sting needed to be the
it
hero going up
it had to
against
be
it.
the full like,
Yeah.
the way
Yeah.
it came out is the best way that could have ever come out.
Well,
And a lot of it was
also,
because you put everybody where they were supposed to be. You needed the
sure.
rising hero,
Yeah.
and who had been there the whole time. It's the only way it made sense. Like, he'd been there the whole
It
time.
was NWO versus WCW, and
That was really
Sting
what
was
that
WCW.
was WCW through
Especially
and through,
without
and had
Flair
always
there.
been.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
and had always been.
Oh,
So,
until
anyhow, that's
before
time.
then, he had never worked for anybody else really. It
None.
was
That was it.
that was his
His place.
playground. That
He
was
was the
his
face that ran that
place.
place for a
Yeah,
while.
absolutely. And again, I was talking about how, you talk about like doing things the right way, versus here's the thing. Here,
So
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this much. I'll tell you this much. Hogan or Sting. Right now, you're in a locker room. Regardless of like push or whatever else. But you've got to work a match. Hell, you got to work a 6-week program leading up to a pay-per-view. If you know, again, you're savvy to the business, you know what's what. Are you happier to hear that it's Sting, or are you happier to hear that it's Hogan?
yeah, well, I think that's an easy answer. So, I will say to see who is number 8 we're up to 18 after this, so Hogan's
Yeah,
19, yeah.
yep,
So, it wasn't until we were talking just now, I got to thinking, you said, the thing about Taker, right? Up and rising, the guy that was going this his elevator was going this direction. And what did Hogan try to do?
right,
He tried to squash it. In the
yeah,
biggest match up until that point with
yep,
him, he tried to squash it by saying pulling something.
yeah,
Pulling he was trying to pull some shenanigans.
yeah.
Hogan, 96, 97. Which one is I can't remember right off. Starcade, 97. Starcade, 97. Sting, Hogan. Been a year and a half of work,
Yeah.
and he couldn't just do the thing that was supposed to happen. Sting beats him clean. Not gonna work for me, brother.
Yeah.
Uh, and that whole Starcade '97 fiasco happened, and Sting did have the belt, didn't have the belt, didn't get the count wasn't right. Somebody came in and fast counted, but he didn't. Um, all the stuff. Anyhow,
Yeah.
so that's Hogan in the ring. His legacy in the ring, like I said, his his face. He was 80s wrestling.
And
WrestleMania isn't what it is today without Hulk Hogan
no,
getting things started.
professional wrestling isn't what it is today, good, bad, or indifferent, without Hulk Hogan, without
Right.
that push, without
Yeah.
Vince, without all the timing on it.
The
The
perfect timing of
the
everything. Like
yeah, I
it
mean,
truly did.
the whole the
Media had to
whole
look at marketing.
architecture of
Mhm.
professional wrestling would be very, very different if
And
it
crossover appeal.
wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Like the 90s aren't nearly as attitude, possibly not as attitude driven. Or even if it's as attitude driven, maybe not as you are watching anyhow. So without Hogan, like Hogan and early Hogan of the 80s, and quite frankly, even Hogan of the late 90s there with when NWO was a major face that runs the place kind of guy.
yep.
And since then, during then as well, there's backstage shadiness and
Mhm.
everything like that that's going on. So that's always going on. But ever since he then left wrestling, there's all the controversies that have come out, racial, sexual, uh, just about you name it. Him saying something and being recorded. That man needs to get away from. He has way too many people in his life that like recording his life.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just saying,
one of those
dude,
things,
your
it's it's
friends. You got to
it's
really
it's
check
bad
that out
enough.
again.
I'll give him credit for at least, the aspects of some things that are
Oh
not
my goodness,
entirely his fault, but at the same
you did
time,
say it or you did do
it
it.
showed him in a very bad
However,
light, and yeah. Eh,
there is a little bit of that, I mean, coming from me, like
I
you can see me here,
uh,
that's coming from me, some of that is some shady people that are around that poor man, in that and only
yeah,
those times. Now,
yeah.
did you say what you said?
He said what he
No,
said.
dummy. But did you have thought what you said? No, dummy.
And understand, when
I'm
we talk about documented racist remarks, that's coming from the AI. That's not
yes.
Ian or me putting
Mm-mm.
that in there.
No,
That is being pulled in from the AI. These are things that are very well documented and just established
and
now.
I
It's
I'll back Hogan a little bit. He might get extra. There are probably people that have been on this list or will be on this list that have done and said plenty of the same things he just did and said and all this stuff.
You're right. There's plenty of people that may be on this list that we got inklings of. We have maybe some potential understanding around potential either racist or otherwise comments, but what we don't have is them saying it on tape because, to be fair, they're not Hulk Hogan.
True and fair, and that's absolutely fair. That's
Which again, he's a target for that. But again, it's like, dude, okay, yeah, you got the cameras on you.
if
You
you
didn't know
catch
you had
it,
the cameras on you.
you also kind of would learn. You would think maybe not learn it. That's not the right word, but or mindful of it. If you're in the 50s, there's no such thing as because you never thought of it, a cell phone or a quick like
Right.
someone can't quickly get a recording. I can say you said something all day long. It doesn't mean you did. Did it was anyone else there? No. Oh, okay. So it's your word against theirs, and we're done. Like so that stuff just wasn't it was a different time, all that you just don't have record of it. Hogan may suffer on this list
Yeah,
because
I
all that
think I
technology
think the
was
big
here.
thing there is that sure, things like phones even with cameras at all, sure,
Yeah.
didn't exist. But what did exist were video recording cameras
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
black electrical tape to cover over the red
Done.
record light,
Yeah.
which is effectively my understanding what happened, where then you get that record because if you look at the quality of the picture, It's either that or maybe the people had like some CCTV kind of like recording going
Yeah.
on. But effectively,
Again,
it wasn't like it was even like top-notch technology that we have
no.
today.
It doesn't excuse what he said.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
doesn't
That's the
excuse
trick.
like you did still say it, which means you still think it and you still okay, that's what you are. Now, again, I'm playing right here in the middle. How many people of the older wrestlers that we've covered were in a different time period and would have said word for word the exact same thing, if not worse? Um, he just he was just the outside voice that forgot to use his inside voice during a time where it was real easy to hear it and
And it,
record it and
yeah,
document it.
yeah.
And it hit every newsstand and every, newsstand, you know what I'm saying?
And
The and any
probably the same reason why he probably felt like he never had to worry about it was the very same reason he was a target to begin with.
to begin with.
I'm Hulk Hogan.